your favorite final girl, Bougie Badass, and I'm back to hold your hand and guide you through spooky season yet again. I realize we haven't seen each other since around last year this time, and all I have to say about that is it's 2020. I'm sure if you're watching this, you live on Earth and you're pretty aware of what's going on, so I'm not gonna get too much further into it than that, but I'm back, I'm focused, I'm back out here on these creepy streets, and I'm here with some recommendations for horror movies you can watch this Halloween. Now, even though this year has been scary enough on its own, we can always find a few extra chills to squeeze out around Halloween time, around spooky season, but like the fun chills, not the scary, anxiety-inducing ones we've been getting month after month this year. If you saw my list last year, I gave not really a top 10 tier list. I didn't really do it in any particular order. This year, I'm gonna try to do more of a countdown list because people seem to kind of want it in order of like 10 to 1. So this year they are ranked. Now, whether you like found footage horror movies or zombie movies or haunted house, creepy, scary movies like that, or psychological horror, there really should be something on this list that appeals to you. At least one thing. Oh, one extra tip I have when you're selecting horror movies to watch, especially on streaming services, do not pay attention to how many stars or thumbs up or whatever it has on the streaming service. I'm telling you right now. On streaming services in particular, any old body will stumble across these movies. And when I say any old body, I mean somebody who probably never watches stuff like this. People whose main movie watching experience is like those Hallmark Christmas movies. Those people will stumble across a horror movie, look at it and be like, what is this? I didn't like that. This was boring. What is that? And leave it 1 star when it's just like really not their thing. People leave anything that doesn't appeal to their direct personal taste 1 star, 2 stars. And especially on Amazon, if you read the reviews, there's a lot of, I don't get it. What was this? What was that? I've seen like the lowest reviews for some of the best horror movies I've ever seen. So please don't pay those any attention. Now, since this year we're in a unique situation where if you're a person with any responsibility about yourself, you shouldn't be trick-or-treating, handing out candy, or out in the streets partying with a skimpy outfit on. Movies are pretty much all we have to lean on right now. And the right spooky movie with the right cocktail can be more fun than a party anyway, if you ask me. So with that said, here are 10 more of my horror recommendations for Halloween night. So coming in at number 10, we have House LLC. Now, this one is actually a pretty basic found footage horror movie. Like if you've seen one, you've seen them all to some extent. And it actually has a bit of like a hokey twist at the end, but I don't know, for whatever reason, this kind of scared the shit out of me. Maybe it's because I already don't mess with haunted houses. I've never been to one. I don't plan on ever going to one. And this movie, like low key, kind of illustrates the main reason why I'm not into it. This faux documentary seeks to discover the truth behind a 2009 tragedy at an upstate New York haunted house built inside an abandoned hotel with a checkered past, where a mysterious malfunction on opening night led to the death of 15 people, including nearly the entire staff. Almost miraculously, the documentary film crew is able to make contact with the one remaining missing staffer 5 years after the incident. She sits for an interview about her experience and provides them with tapes the crew filmed of the days leading up to opening night, which reveal a series of eerie paranormal events taking place from the moment they began work on the attraction and sheds light on what exactly happened on the night of the tragedy. Now, this one actually has 2 sequels that I have not seen, so it may be something to check out. But from what I understand, it gives more backstory and context to the events of the first film, and I really feel like that was a pretty contained story on its own. Like, it's not really necessary to get much deeper into what was going on. If any of you have seen those and think they're good, let me know. I haven't heard good things, and I really feel like this movie was strong enough on its own to not need 2 follow-ups. Okay, at number 9, we have The Perfection. Now, this one's more on the psychological, unsettling end of the horror spectrum. It stars Logan Browning from Dear White People, the Netflix series that I really enjoy, and Allison Williams from Girls and from, more famously, Get Out. And she's actually being a little typecast in this movie. This 2018 film follows a promising young cellist named Charlotte who was forced to leave her beloved boarding school for gifted musicians to care for her mother during a sudden illness. After her mother's death years later, she seeks out her old instructors and is welcomed to Shanghai to help them select their next young protege, but also discovers that she has been replaced with another, even more talented cellist named Lizzie. Surprisingly, they hit it off immediately and decide to take a bus trip across the Chinese countryside. After Lizzie falls violently ill with a mysterious sickness during their bus ride, the connection they make leads to some shocking decisions and even more shocking discoveries that have explosive consequences for each of them. Now, this one takes all sorts of twists and turns in the plot line, and it's told in a really non-traditional, non-linear storytelling style. You can't really piece together what's going on from moment to moment because the story is throwing bits of pertinent information and more context at you at pretty random intervals. Now, that's probably going to irk some people, but it worked for me. I really liked it. It was a really unique thriller, and I highly recommend it. At number 8, we have The Neon Demon. Now, I'm not really quite sure how to describe what subgenre of horror this one is. It kind of spans across several, but I don't even really know how to describe it without even getting into spoilers for you. At its heart, it's kind of a meditation on the value society places on physical beauty, the industry machine, especially as far as it relates to modeling, exploitation, jealousy, narcissism. It really encapsulates all those things, but it's told in this really kind of twisted horror fable? We'll call it that. This one is about a 16-year-old girl who runs away from rural Georgia to LA to pursue a modeling career. She befriends a well-connected makeup artist on one of her first photo shoots who introduces her to 2 older, more seasoned models, both of whom seem equally fascinated by and envious of her. After being pegged as a rare beauty by her modeling agency, she quickly rises up the industry ranks due to having that special something that all the casting agents, designers, and photographers are looking for. As she begins to garner success and popularity, both she and all those around her become increasingly enthralled with her beauty and in danger of being consumed by it. In an industry where everyone wants something from her, will her unique beauty be her strength or her downfall? Now, this one's very stylized. It's got a lot of visual interest with the cinematography, like this neon demon, all this neon color, splash lighting, a lot of very striking imagery that's meant to stick with you. It's from the same director as Drive and Only God Forgives. If you've seen those movies, you kind of get a feel for the visual vibe that this one goes for. Now, I watched some of the trailer material out there and read some of the synopses, and I feel like I can't get too much further into it without spoiling it, or at least revealing more than the filmmakers mean for you to know going in. And I feel like it's kind of better not to know exactly where the story is going 9 times out of 10, but especially with this one. I will say that some of that striking imagery I told you about is on the disturbing side. There's one scene in particular that's really over the top, and a lot of people have pegged it as being pretty offensive and pornographic. In there, you're gonna know it when you see it if you watch it. At number 7, we have Unsane. This was another psychological thriller. I'm noticing that's kind of my go-to genre. I think a lot of the ones I watch are psychological thrillers. This one deals mainly with paranoia, perception, mental illness, who's mentally ill, who isn't, who gets to determine that. And it deals with it in a really raw and gritty way that you don't commonly see in most like mainstream Hollywood productions. It kind of has the vibe of an indie flick, even though it has a lot of money behind it. This film follows the plight of a young woman who relocates from her hometown to start a new life after being a stalking victim. Finding that she's still suffering effects of PTSD and having anxiety in her day-to-day interactions with men, she researches local therapists and quickly makes an appointment to chat with one at a nearby psychiatric facility one day after work. Once there, she's handed some paperwork she barely skims over and signs it before sitting down to speak with the therapist. What she doesn't realize is that she has signed herself over for an involuntary hold at the psych facility, rendering her unable to leave on her own volition. To top it all off, she now believes that one of the orderlies at the facility is actually her stalker, having discovered her whereabouts and taken on a new identity. And it becomes a whirlwind of self-preservation while trying to sort out if it's all real or all in her mind. Now, it's a 2018 film from the director Steven Soderbergh. He's pretty famous if you're not familiar. It was actually shot 100% on an iPhone 7, which kind of gives it more of that very personal, in-your-face vibe. You feel like you're in the character's shoes. So you're just as unsure as she is about her mental state until the curtain is pulled back to reveal exactly what's going on here and what's real and what's not, and is it a byproduct of the thing she's been through or a byproduct of the situation that she's in? Or is she really in this situation? It's a very, again, psychological thriller. Coming in at number 6, we have Train to Busan. Now, this is a foreign film, so dust off those reading glasses. Full disclosure for me, zombie media is a little tired in my eyes. It's just overplayed at this point. Plus, with a virus that's sweeping the whole world literally as we speak right now, it's just, I haven't really been in the mood for that type of media. Something that's covering a communicable disease, sweeping the entire planet, and changing our way of life for the foreseeable future. It hits a little bit too close to home. Like, honestly, you can just watch CNN for that at this point. Either way, this one was like a zap of energy to the zombie genre, and I really, really enjoyed it when I watched it. This 2016 Korean film follows a rapidly spreading zombie disease ravaging a passenger train car by car, unbeknownst to the writers, who are initially oblivious that the nation is falling apart as they ride across several cities. At the center of the story, we have a father desperate to protect his young daughter. I know that was a short synopsis, but it's pretty straightforward, simple stuff, but it's executed creatively enough to breathe life into this pretty exhausted trope. It's kind of taking the zombie apocalypse thing and putting it on a moving vehicle with people from all walks of life and kind of examining human nature from that aspect. When everyone goes into survival mode, who will become heroic? Who will become a coward? What kind of decisions will people make for survival? Will they save each other? Will they throw each other under the bus or under the train, literally? So this one, being as popular as it was, it's been really popular in Korea and over here in recent years too. So there actually is a sequel to this one named Peninsula that came out this year that I also really recommend. It's not a true sequel. It's kind of like an in-universe sequel. We're not dealing with the same cast of characters, but we're in the same zombie apocalypse. It just fast forwards 4 years to nowadays to see kind of another situation where you're pit against these Walking Dead monsters. It's good. I would check them both out, Train to Busan and Peninsula. Okay, at number 5, we have The Black Coat's Daughter. Now, I highlighted this one in my honorable mentions on my top 10 list last year, but this is a really good one. I think it kind of deserves its own moment. I feel like it's pretty highly slept on. Now, it is sort of a slow burn, exposition heavy, show more so than tell type of movie. It's never boring, but if you're the type of person that needs a lot of action and explosions and a lot of just quick, punchy things happening in a movie to hold your attention, I would just encourage you to put your phone down, focus, and it really will pay off. By the time in the story, you might reach a point where you're like, okay, where the hell is this going? It's gonna knock you in the side of the head. This 2018 film tells 2 seemingly unrelated parallel stories. One of 2 Catholic boarding school girls who, by completely separate circumstances, end up the only 2 students left at school over winter break, and one of a mysterious older girl nervously hitchhiking towards the school. The 2 girls aren't friends, but awkwardly try to make a connection with one another in this isolated situation, while each struggling with their own personal problems. The older girl seems to be in a rush to get back to campus, either running away from or towards something mysterious and important. All the while, a mysterious force seems to be prevailing over all of them. And again, as with most of these, it's best to go into it knowing as little as possible, so I'm gonna just leave you with that. I will say, without really giving anything away, that the true villain, if you even want to say there is one in this story, is loneliness. That's it. I'll leave it alone. At number 4, we have The Lighthouse. Now, much like my suggestion of The Witch last year, I can already tell you off rip that this is not a movie for a good chunk of y'all. You might want to actually just skip it, depending on your taste. Now, that's partially because it's actually from the same director as The Witch. It's a very artistically done kind of what the hell did I just watch type of movie, but really in like the best way possible. Now, it's quite confusing. It's a little all over the place. There's a lot of people who don't actually feel that this is a horror movie. I would disagree. I do feel like it is a horror movie, but there is a very big, I want to say, artistic and open to interpretation element to it. Now, one thing I can say will probably turn a lot of people off when watching this is that the story features pretty much just 2 characters, and each of them speak in very thick, time period accurate accent. They use very antiquated language, and they speak in a lot of seafaring terms that aren't really common if you work on land. Now, you can pick up what they're saying because they are speaking English, but it's probably going to be easier just to watch it with the subtitles on, to be frank. Set in the 1890s, this one is about two lighthouse keepers, one older, weathered lighthouse attendant and a new-to-the-sea young assistant, or wickie as they're called, managing a lighthouse on a tiny, obscure, rocky island in New England for a period of 30 days. With isolation setting in during monotonous and grueling workdays, the two clash, work together, and start slipping further into apparent madness. The lines of reality, fantasy, delusion, lies, and truth blur while the two men remain locked in tension over a mysterious force inside the lighthouse lamp. So this one deals with two already unreliable narrators who are both under the influence of alcohol, under the influence of seclusion, and kind of losing their grip on reality and sanity. So it's never exactly clear what's truly happening. You're not really sure what's real versus what's a delusion. You're not really sure who's telling the truth. So in the end, it's almost up to you. Now, there are a lot of analysis and breakdowns of what happened in the lighthouse that I would suggest you watch afterward if you want a little bit more context, especially because there's a lot of historical and mythological references that if you don't already know them are going to be lost on you when you see them inside the context of the film. But it is a really good watch, especially if you're into kind of more art house style horror films. So again, just have patience. It's worth a watch. All right, well, switching gears to something a bit less experimental and more direct, we have Starry Eyes coming in at number 3. Now, this 2014 film flew a bit under the radar. I don't think I even heard of it myself until around 2016. But it's a hidden gem of sorts that takes a look at the lengths people are willing to go to chase their ambition. It also kind of examines the dark side of fame. This one tells the all too familiar story of an aspiring actress living and auditioning in LA, working a demeaning dead-end job she hates to make ends meet while sharing a house with 4 other struggling actors in similar situations. After a particularly bad audition triggers her anxiety and self-harm issues, a mysterious casting agency suddenly takes a special interest in her. Their repeated audition requests from her get progressively stranger and more invasive, and she soon has to determine how far she's willing to go to achieve the life of fame, fortune, glitz, and glamour that she dreams of. Now, again, I don't want to spoil this, but there's a lot more going on in this story beyond the synopsis I just gave. And actually, if you're a person that knows much about conspiracy theories dealing with the Hollywood elite, or the notion that musicians, actors, and entertainers have to complete like Illuminati rituals or appease some sort of cult order to achieve the next level of fame and stardom and recognition, this is gonna resonate with you. That said, if you're the type of person that really believes in this stuff, please know this isn't a documentary. It's just a horror movie. All right, number 2, we have Host. Now this one is like hands down my favorite horror film that has come out all year. This one is in the screen life subgenre of found footage horror, which if you're unfamiliar with what screen life is, it's like Unfriended or Searching, basically where the entire story is told to you via computer screens and phone screens. Like you're seeing everything from a character POV who's involved in the action on their computer. And with that, it's probably a scarier and more immersive experience if you actually watch it on your laptop instead of your TV. This one follows a group of friends getting together during social distancing mandates in the UK to have what they think will be some spooky fun by hosting an online seance. They hire a medium to guide them through communing with the spirits, and she warns them that this should be taken equally as seriously as if they were in person, as spirits can transmit energy through electronic means like the internet. Needless to say, things quickly go awry and the group gets much more action than they bargained for. And this entire movie is actually a Zoom call. It was filmed 100% via Zoom and went from conception to screen in about 3 months time period, all during quarantine lockdown. So this one is creepy on both the fictional paranormal level and on the real life level because it's dealing with the strange and scary reality that we've actually been living in all year. Well, at least those of us who take the virus seriously and have respect for ourselves and the health of others and are doing our part by staying home as much as possible and wearing our mask when we go out for only necessary reasons. Plus, it's a very quick watch. It's only 57 minutes long, so it's probably shorter than the Zoom calls you actually have to go to for work. And coming in number 1, we have a much more traditional horror flick, The Orphanage. Now this one's about 13 years old, and I typically don't cover horror movies that old because I have the assumption that if it's been out that long, surely you've heard of it by now. But this one's really a gem, and I don't personally know too many people who actually have seen it. So again, you're gonna need to pull out your reading glasses for this one because it is a foreign film. But if you speak fluent Spanish already, you'll be fine. This 2007 film from Spain is about a woman who, alongside with her family, relocates back to her childhood home, the now abandoned orphanage she herself was adopted from. As they settle in with plans to reopen as a facility for orphaned handicapped children, her young son begins to communicate with a new invisible friend. This new imaginary friendship begins to cause a rift between mother and son, leading to his eventual sudden disappearance. It's now up to her to discover the secrets held within the walls of her former home in hopes of returning her son to her. Now, this seems like a typical kind of traditional old-style haunted house story, but it really does not go the way that you think it will. Now, no spoilers, again, that's my whole thing I keep telling you, no spoilers. But there are a lot of unexpected twists and turns with this story, and it takes an unexpected direction that really makes it a standout in this kind of haunted house supernatural subgenre of horror. So that wraps up my spooky recommendations for this season. Drop down in the comments and let me know if there's any really creepy movies that just had you jumping out of your seat that I somehow missed. Or also let me know if you think I'm just way off mark with any of my suggestions and you think these movies are like complete whack sauce. Full disclaimer, I'm going to make you defend your comments, so don't leave a comment unless you want to fight me. Also, if you want to see more in-depth kind of quick bite horror reviews from me on the other 31 movies I watched this month, because I do watch a horror movie for every day in the month of October, you can check me out on Instagram at Bougie Badass. I drop them in my stories, 31 Days of Horror. I review a different horror movie every day of the month. So they're in my IG stories, but I also have them highlighted on my page. So if you want my raw, honest opinion on 31 other movies, you can check those out there. Also, be sure to like and subscribe if you like the content you saw here today, or even if you didn't, because I have more content on the way. So you should still like and subscribe.